Good to see each one. We would like to turn to the book of Mark, chapter 5. Book of Mark, chapter 5. We'll read the first 20 verses. And they, Jesus and the apostles, came over unto the other side of the sea into the country of the Gadarenes. When he was come out of the ship, immediately, as soon as he gets out of the ship, there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, this is the demons speaking through him, what have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. And he, Jesus, said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, Send us unto the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. And the unclean spirits went out, and entered into the swine. And the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were choked or drowned in the sea. And they that fed the swine and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. And they came to Jesus, and see him that was possessed with the devil, and had the legion, sitting and clothed, and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. And they began to pray him, that is to Jesus, to depart out of their coasts. And when he was come into the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit Jesus suffered or permitted him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed, and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him. And all men did marvel. What we read here is in the middle of several hopeless cases. Prior to this account, Christ had displayed his delivering and teaching powers. He had healed a paralytic. He had healed a man with a withered hand. The multitudes, as a result, began to follow him, and he healed many of them as well. He would then heal a demon-possessed man. He would have an encounter with the Pharisees. All of this is prior to what we've just read. And he would go to the seaside. And we read in Mark chapter 4, verse 1, And there was gathered unto him a great multitude. With no place to go, Matthew says in his account, and when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. So Jesus and the apostles are in this ship. We read in Mark 4, 1 and 2, that Jesus sat, and the whole multitude was by the sea on the land, and he taught them many things by parables. And the parables he taught them are recorded in Matthew 13. So the evening begins to approach. Jesus said to the apostles that were in that ship, let us pass on to the other side. Mark chapter 4, verse 35. We come to Mark 5, verse 1, and we see that the other side was the country of the Gadarenes. Now, on the way to this other side, they encountered a fierce, life-threatening storm. And Jesus would display his power over the winds and the waves and bring a great calm. Again, all of this is prior to our text, leading up to our text. Following the text, Jesus again passes over, and there he raises the daughter of Jairus, heals a woman with a terrible plague of blood. So, in between, we have this account. Jesus and the apostles arrived to land. Matthew 8:28, in his account, says there met him two possessed with devils. However, Mark and Luke in their accounts only give record of one. This is not a contradiction. There were two. But Mark and Luke focus upon one. Mark says here in Mark 5, verse 2, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. And Luke says in Luke 8:27, there met him out of the city a certain man which had devils. So Mark and Luke focus upon one. And though there were two, it appears that from Mark and Luke's account that Jesus was there particularly for this one. For this one. So prior to our text, the apostles had witnessed the power of Christ bringing restoration and calm. And then in our text, Jesus and the apostles arrive in the country of the Gadarenes. And he's done so to bring restoration and calm to one man in particular. Concerning this one individual, society did not have what this man needed. But the one who did has arrived. And Jesus had come to rescue this man from the power of sin and Satan. He had come to relieve this man from his enslavement, from his misery, from his despair, from his agony. Jesus had arrived in Gadara to restore and put back together this man's wasted and broken life. In the account, we see the display of power. In the account, there are three displays of power that we want to notice. And the subject this morning is powers displayed in life. The first power that we see displayed here is the devastating, destructive power of Satan. Again, we see this displayed in the demonics. But like Mark and Luke, we will focus upon the one. This man was under the control of Satan. He was under the control of the powers of hell. And Jesus arrives in the country of the Gadarenes. And we read in verse 2 of our text, immediately there met him a man out of the tombs, a man with an unclean spirit. Luke, in his account, Luke 8:27, writes, there met him out of the city a certain man which had devils a long time. Verse 9 of our text, the unclean spirit, the demon, is identified as legion, meaning many. In Luke 8, verse 30, Luke writes, Jesus asked him, that is this man, what is thy name? And he said, Legion, because we are many. And the word legion, of course, is referring to a contingent of Roman soldiers, could be up to 6,000 soldiers. And this man approaches Jesus and the apostles, and he is possessed and he is controlled by a legion of demons. Now, demons are spiritually and morally unclean, and this man had a legion of them. Demons are filled with evil and ungodliness, and this man had a legion of them. Demons are filled with hate and malice toward God, toward the things of God, toward the people of God. And this man had a legion of them. Demons are filled with rebellion and opposition against God. And this man had a legion of them. Demons are the enemies of God. And this man had a legion of demons. So I believe it is accurate to say that this man is totally wretched, vile, and wicked. He was haunted and under the spell of a legion of demons. And again, Luke in his account, Luke 8:27, that he had devils a long time. A long time. So what we read here of this man has been going on for a long period of time. In Luke 8:29, we read that the man was driven of the devil. So he's under the control of the powers of hell. He is a slave to the powers of hell. This man is a pitiful picture of a devil-controlled life. And concerning our own spiritual biography, before we were saved, we read in Ephesians 2, verse 2, that we walked according to the prince of the power of the air. Notice this man's dwelling place. In verse 2, and when he, Jesus, was come out of the ship, so he's at the water's edge. It would be just barely dawn. They've traveled through the night. There met him, Jesus, one out of the tombs. Verse 3, we are told that he had his dwelling among the tombs. And in verse 5, it is in the tombs. Luke says in his account, Luke 8:27, neither abode in any house, but in the tombs. Matthew records of the two in Matthew 8:28 that they came out of the tombs. Now, tombs were at that time cut into the side of a mountain, which would create a cave. So this demon-possessed man had his dwelling amongst the tombs. In other words, he was not just visiting the tomb of a friend. He wasn't just there to place some flowers outside of a tomb. He lived there. He lived in the tombs. He's a tomb dweller. The fact is, he's more comfortable with the dead than he is the living. Something's terribly wrong with that. Spiritually speaking, this man's without Christ and was dead in trespasses and sins. And his dwelling is in accord with his spiritual condition. He lived among the dead. Oh, the power of hell over lives. We also see this man's disposition and his character. This man, dominated by demons, was restless. Mark records in verse 5 here of our text that he was always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying. Notice those words, always, night and day. He has no relief. This man knows nothing of the peace of the Lord. He knows nothing about the security and the assurance that the Lord brings to one's life. He knows nothing of spiritual refreshment. His life is filled with chaos and weariness and distress. We read in Isaiah 57 and 20 that the wicked are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. This man who was dominated by demons was filled with sorrow. Mark records always day and night, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying. And the word crying there refers to a loud scream, a shriek, a blood-curdling scream. And we can imagine that many of the townspeople had heard this man's screams echoing through the mountains. And those screams went on continually throughout the day and into the night. Here is a man. He's tormented mercilessly, day and night, by the forces of hell. Here is a man in despair, misery, anguish, and all the hopelessness that fills this man's soul. We also see that this man was self-destructive. Mark records that he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying and cutting himself with stones. That's not normal behavior. In this case, it's demonic behavior. He would gash himself with these stones. He would hack his body with these stones, leaving it covered with sores. And from this, we see that this man was self-destructive, to say the least, and such is the nature of sin. It is always self-destructive to the one who's held captive by it. And it always leaves scars. Satan promises the best, but pays with the worst. Satan promises honor and pays with disgrace. This man is controlled by Satan. Satan promises profit, but pays with loss. Now, the destructive power of these demons that possess this man is also seen in the result of them entering into the swine. In Mark chapter 5, verses 12 and 13, the hogs became violent. When those demons entered into the hogs, they became violent, they became chaotic, they were mad, and they were self-destructive, running down the side of the hill into the sea, drowned. Oh, the destructive and devastating power of hell. We see also that this man, dominated by demons, was filled with anger. Matthew says in Matthew 8:28 that he was exceeding, that is, more than. He was exceeding fierce. That is, he was savage, he was vicious, he was aggressive, he was deranged, he was irrational, so that no man might pass by that way. Everybody avoided his area. Why? Because he was frightening. He was aggressive. He was dangerous. He was a horrible menace to society, and his actions were more animal-like than human, and he would attack anyone who ventured to take the road by the tombs. The anger that raged in his soul is also seen again from the behavior of the hogs when the swine entered them. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record that the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were ungovernable. Again, all the destructive powers of hell. This man was a moral degenerate. In our text, the demons are described as unclean. That is, they're impure, they're defiling. And this man had a legion of demons. Luke, in his account, Luke 8:27, says that he wore no clothes. He wore no clothes. Satan's program is to unclothe people. Public nakedness is immoral. Public nakedness is degrading. But also, wearing no clothes exposed him to the elements, exposed him to the heat of the day and the cool of the night. This man was also uncontrollable. He's disturbed, greatly distressed, self-destructive, enraged. He's wild. He's degenerate. And to protect him from himself and to protect others from him, they would put chains on his hands and shackles on his feet. This was the remedy of society. But in their remedy, they failed to recognize, or they underestimated, I should say, the powers of hell. And Mark records in verses 3 and 4, no man could bind him. No man could bring this individual under control. And then it says, no, not with chains. That's used to emphasize. It goes on to say that they tried on many occasions. But notice, the chains had been plucked, pulled off, asunder, in pieces by him, and the fetters, the shackles, broken in pieces. And then notice, neither could any man tame him. They tried to fix him. They tried to control him. But they could not. Look at this man. He's under the control of the forces of hell. And you cannot fix what is caused by the supernatural with the natural. It cannot be done. Society tries over and over and over, but they fail because they underestimate depravity. They underestimate the powers of hell. No man could reason with him. No man could tame him. No laws could change him. Well, we'll just make a law against it. It's not going to change this man. No code of moral standards could fix this individual. Religion could not fix this man. He's a picture of many lives. No discipline. No regard for authority. No restraint. We need to see this man and all the powers of hell. Secondly, we need to notice the delivering, restoring power of the Lord. We see Christ arrives in Gadara. And though society did not have what this man so desperately needed, there was one who did. And he comes to the place where this man was. The one who could alter and transform death and darkness and hurt and hopelessness and anguish and defeat. He has arrived. The one who could bring individuals from the brink of destruction. He's arrived. The one who has authority and power over the host of hell. He has arrived. The one greater than any condition, any situation, any circumstance. The one greater than any power. The one greater than any enslavement, any problem, any plague, any need. He has arrived in Gadara. The one who could help. The one who could heal. The one who could deliver. The one who could restore. The one who could bring relief and joy and fulfillment and peace and victory has arrived. And He is there for this man. Remember the day that Jesus showed up for you. Remember the day when Jesus came where you were. So picture this man as he approaches Christ, as he rushes toward Christ. Broken chains are hanging from his wrist. The clanging of the chains around his ankles could be heard as he dragged them along. His naked body is covered with scars and bleeding sores from the self-inflicted wounds. There's dried blood on his arms, his legs, and his hands. I imagine his hair is matted together with dirt and blood. And under the control of these demons, wild terror is in his eyes. He's under the absolute control of Satan. And he is a picture of what sin and Satan can do. His life is like the life of countless individuals. It's been torn to shreds by sin and Satan. His life is marked by devastation, dysfunction, and ruin. And he's lost in a maze of sin, drowning in despair, bent on self-destruction. But Jesus has come to where he is, to rescue this man from his enslavement, from his misery, from his despair and his agony. Jesus has come to where this man is to restore and put back this man's wasted and broken life. And cities and towns are filled with people whose lives have been torn to shreds by sin and Satan, whose lives have been devastated and ruined by sin and Satan, filled with people lost in the maze of sin, filled with people who live without purpose and whose lives are aimless, filled with people living in the degradation of sin, filled with people desecrated by sin, filled with people who are drowning in despair and bent on self-destruction. Just continually, round and round they go, doing the things that bring destruction to their lives, feeding the destruction that is in their lives. And you can sit down and try to reason with them, but that won't fix them. You can come up with all the government programs you want, and I'm not condemning that, but it won't fix them. It won't fix them. What these people need, social service cannot give. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not condemning social service, but social service cannot give this individual what he needs. The government handouts will not provide what this man needs. Well, we'll just give him some money. We'll give him some food. That won't fix him. His problem is a spiritual one. That's his root problem. What this man needed has come to Gadara. He has arrived. And then we see Christ exercising his power over the forces of Satan and sin. In Mark 5, verse 7, when this man rushed toward Christ with the demons screaming through him, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God?" The apostles probably only saw a wild-eyed maniac. But Jesus saw more than a maniac. Jesus saw a man under the control of Satan, perishing in sin. Jesus saw a man who desperately needed rescuing. I'm sure the apostles, they thought when they saw this man come, we need to get away from him. But Jesus saw a man who desperately needed to be rescued. And notice verse 13. And forthwith, immediately without delay, Jesus gave them leave. Luke records in Luke 8:33, then went the devils out of the man. Matthew records in Matthew 8:32 that Jesus said to the demons, go. And they were come out. This one named Jesus dismisses a legion of demons. Again, we read in verse 3 of our text, no man could. And in verse 4, neither could any man. But this one named Jesus, he has authority. He has power over the host of hell. And he sends these demons into a herd of swine, who as a result ran down a steep slope, half crazed, into the sea and drowned. The herders of these swine fled in fear. And they began to tell the people what they had just witnessed. And the townspeople came to Jesus, and they saw something truly amazing. In verse 15, they saw him that was possessed, was past tense, with the devil, and had the legion. They look at this man whose life had been controlled by the forces of hell. This man who had lived in the tombs and dwelt among the dead. This man that they had heard his blood-curdling screams throughout the day and throughout the night. They see this one whose life had been bent on destruction, self-destruction. This one who was nothing but a wild-eyed maniac in their eyes. This one whose life had been torn to shreds. And he's sitting. He's sitting. No longer wandering aimlessly and restlessly. No longer in despair and anguish. No longer in the tombs. No longer out of control. He's sitting. He's sitting calmly. He's relaxed. He's untroubled. There's a tranquility about him. He's peaceful. He's not tormented. He's no longer screaming. But he's quiet. Oh, look at what Jesus can do. The one who had been under the control of a legion of demons is sitting, and it says, and clothed. He's not naked. He that was spiritually and morally vile is now clothed. The shame, the disgrace, and the filth, it's all gone. Oh, look at what Jesus can do. And notice that this man who was absolutely out of his mind, he's now in his right mind. We'll speak on that in the next message. He's in his right mind. The anguish, the torment, the distress, the misery, the agony, the mania, all gone. See what Jesus can do. There he is, sitting, clothed and in his right mind. And he's sitting there. He no doubt feels a liberty, a joy, a happiness, a peace. There's an assurance that has come over him. There's a love in his heart. It's filled with thankfulness and praise that he's never felt before. See him there, sitting and clothed and in his right mind. His entire outlook has changed. His attitude changed. His thoughts, his desires are all new. From verse 18, we see that he desired to be with Jesus. His desire for the tombs is gone. What a beautiful picture that is presented to us in verse 15. It is a picture of what Jesus can do. Don't give up on anybody. You can't fix them, but we know one who can. He's the answer. And he is still the answer to what plagues and torments mankind. The politicians do not have the answer. Oh, they would like you to believe they do. They would like you to believe they can fix anything. They can't fix anything. We know one who can. He has the ability. He has the sufficiency to meet and to exceed the desperate needs of man. Whatever is going on in anyone's life right now, in him is the power to cast out all the destructive powers in your life. No one here is demon-possessed, but I dare say that every one of us have some destructive powers in our life. And Christ is the answer. Thirdly and lastly and briefly, we've seen the powers of hell. We see the power of Christ. And now I want you to notice the power of a God-fixed life. This man, his life has been fixed. In verse 18, he pleads with Jesus that he might be with him. In verse 19, Jesus instructed him, "Go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee and hath had compassion on thee." What he's telling this man, "Lord, I want to go with you." And basically what Jesus tells him is, you serve me where you are. You serve me where you are. Let me say this. You will not serve God somewhere else if you don't serve him where you are. This is what Jesus is saying. Serve me where you are. Or better yet, serve me at home. And that's always so. Serve me at home. And we don't know. We know he's had demons a long time. Luke tells us that. But we don't know how long it's been since he was home. How long it's been since he talked with his family and his friends. But he went home. And oh, what a story he told. And he went home, and as he told what the Lord had done, there were no screams. He's been changed. He didn't pull out a stone out of his pocket and start gashing his arm. The people could look at him and see. The anger is gone. He's no longer someone to be afraid of. He's no longer dangerous. He's no longer uncontrollable. He's no longer disturbed and distressed. You see, had he gone home that way and told the story, no one would have believed him. But he went home changed. And he told of Jesus. Notice verse 20. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis, an area of 10 cities, how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. Oh, the power and the influence of a God-fixed life. In closing, Mark 7. Remember, the people wanted Jesus to leave. This man went home to Decapolis and began to publish what the Lord had done for him. And in Mark 7, verse 31, and again, departing from the coast of Tyre and Sidon, he, Jesus, came into the Sea of Galilee through the midst of the coasts of Decapolis. And they, the very same people, pleaded with Jesus to leave, bring unto him one that was deaf and had an impediment in his speech. And they beseech him to put his hand upon him. I've got to believe that this man who went everywhere and told what Jesus had done, his life has been an influence. And now the very same people who wanted Jesus to leave are pleading with him to heal an individual. Oh, the power of a fixed life. If our lives have been fixed, and if we're saved, they have been, oh, the power of the life that we can live. We need to manifest the change that the Lord has wrought and tell others what God has done in our life. Brother Ben, if you'd come and lead us in a verse song.